Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 29, 2025 CASI Charter Chat, and Happy New Year, by the way. Next slide, please. So as usual, we want to offer this caveat before we get started. Just want to let you know that the information that is in this presentation is provided for your reference. And before applying any of this information to your specific situation, we strongly encourage you to consult with the law and the regulations and perhaps even legal counsel. Next slide, please. So today, actually, before we go into the agenda, just want to remind you to mute yourself. So take a moment, please, to make sure that you are muted. And if you're not, put yourself on mute. There will be time later during the breakout rooms to ask questions, and you may also put questions as we go into the chat, and we will take those questions throughout the presentation. And as you heard, this session is being recorded. It will be posted on the CDE website. The breakout rooms, however, will not be recorded. All right, so for today's agenda, we're going to be reminding you what's in the parking lot, review a question from previous charter chat, and provide some legislative information and updates from ACCS and S State Board of Education. We will also share some hot topics on LCAP and the annual report update, as well as fiscal planning for the upcoming school year. Next slide. So CASI is a collaboration among the California Department of Education, Santa Clara County Office of Education, and the California Charter Authorizers. On this slide, you see the members of the team from Santa Clara County Office of Ed. Next slide. On this slide, you see our team members from California Charter Authorizing Professionals. And following slide. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to someone.
So thank you all who came to the Charter Authorizer Oversight Best Practices. That training happened last week on January 21st, and the video recording and resource page should soon be posted to the website if you have further questions or want to go take a look at it. Next slide, please, and I'll turn it over to Dave and Tom.
Okay. Well, again, Happy New Year to everyone. My opportunity is to talk a little bit about previous Charter Chat questions. And so let's start with, we've got 4 of them. Do you know where we could find participation rate reports on the dashboard for academic indicators? Participation rates are available in the downloadable dashboard data files. The data files are located under the Data Files tab. The second one is, will long-term English learners be considered as an independent student group as it relates to the charter school performance categories for renewal? And student performance on the dashboard is a criterion in determining charter school performance categories. Long-term English learners are a student group on the dashboard, and therefore they will be included in the performance category determinations. Additional resources are available at the charter school performance categories and at CDE's long-term English learners section of the website. Third question, how can authorizers get updates on new reports that are available on CDE's DataQuest? The DataQuest listserv is an email distribution list that provides one-way communication from the California Department of Education to interested recipients. All those subscribing to the listserv will receive information via email regarding DataQuest updates, including new data releases, for example, reports and downloadable files, new report options and functionality, data releases, schedules, and reporting documentation, and periodic data analysis summary overviews. Information on registration is available at the DataQuest listserv. And then the fourth one, what is the CDE DataQuest Stability Rate Data Report? The CDE DataQuest Stability Rate Data Report provides data about student stability, including adjusted cumulative enrollment counts, stability and non-stability counts, and stability and non-stability rates disaggregated by race, ethnicity, by gender, student group, and grade level. Okay, I get to pass it on.
All
Susan.
right, we can go to the next slide.
Is Susan here, or Michelle, are you taking the slide?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
hoping Susan was supposed to be here to answer these questions.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yay!
Good morning.
Sorry about that. Had one of those fun Zoom updates. Anybody experience
Oh,
one
we
of
always
those?
get that here. Somehow they
Every
target
single
Charter
time.
Chat days.
I think they only come when you have to speak. They never happen when you're just an audience member. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, everybody. We received this question from the field, and I asked Michelle, if we could maybe address the group, because there are not a whole lot of authorizers in this camp, but it might benefit the field because we do also have charters transitioning from district to county sometimes, so it might have some parallel applications. So the State Board of Education has about 24 charter schools in its portfolio at the moment. As of July 1st, that will change to half. 9 high-tech high schools and at least one Altus charter school, but probably 2, will be transitioning from state board authorized to a different mix. And so the first question is, what process is in place for state authorized charters that will be returning to the districts or county offices? So I guess the first question is, does this apply to you? You can reach out to me if you're not sure, but it's a short list. And what would happen is a charter school that is physically located in your district that was previously denied by you as a district. Was then renewed on appeal by the State Board of Education and has been operating for some time, but now is up for renewal. They've run out all their 1 and 2 year extensions and they're up for renewal. And so the Education Code requires this charter school to first go back to the school district that originally denied them in the before times. And that district looks at that petition and says what we call de novo, brand new. How should I consider renewing you? You could take the performance you are required to take the performance category into consideration. If they're a DAS charter school, then you would consider their alternate metrics that were established with the state board. They should have that on hand. If they don't present it, you can ask our office. But basically, the school district that denied them looks at them and says, do I want to essentially renew you even though I had previously denied you? And that has happened to one of our charter schools called Altus Schools East County. And so in that situation, Grossmont Union High School District, this is in La Mesa, California, in San Diego County, they in October said, you know what? We turned you down the first time, but now that you're up for renewal, we see the performance you've had. We see your DAS, and we looked at your DAS criteria, and we will renew you, which is weird because you're renewing a school that's not yours, but that is how it works for this small population of schools. So as of July 1st, 2025, Grossmont Union High School District is the authorizer of Altus Schools East County. And State Board is relinquishing its authorizing come June 30. So that's the legal process we're talking about. The other way it might come to you as a district or county is that if in this scenario, Grossmont said, you know what, we denied you the first time and we're going to deny you the second time, then that charter school would be required to skip the county, in this case, San Diego County, and they go directly to State Board of Education. And that's what's happening right now with Altus Schools South Bay. So with that charter school, they went to Sweetwater Union High School District, which was the local district that originally denied them. And having been denied, they submitted a renewal charter petition. It might feel like an appeal, but that's not what the Ed Code calls it. And on March 5th, the state board will either renew Altus South Bay's or deny it. In the event Alta South Bay is renewed, then we have that conversation of charter school. Who would you like to be married to? The district that denied you twice, or the county that has not yet denied you but did not consider you as part of this process? And then Craig and the team call the county and confirm, hey, it sounds like this charter school would like to be with you. Would you like to have them? It sounds like arranging something. And most of the time, the county says yes. And then the state board says, knowing what we know about where this charter school wants to be, we grant or deny them and we assign them to the district or the county. So that's the process for the state authorized charters. I'm going to go to the next bullet, but I'm happy to, I see Indra's county. What did it say? It blipped and went away. I always care what Indra's saying. County did deny them once the first time. What happens is the county says no. Thanks, Adeseli. So that's why we do the ask before the board meeting. You know, I think all of us appreciate not getting surprised. And so Craig and his team reach out to the entity the charter says they want. So, oh yes, I get what Indra's saying. Before the state board approved them, when the local district denied the charter, it did go to the county before it was approved by the state board. But the present law is that when they're up for renewal, that's the time they get to skip the county. Sorry, it's confusing. You need like a chutes and ladders to follow. But this is going away after these charter schools are ultimately renewed in the next 2 years. Thanks, Indra. So back to my train of thought. Adeseli's question. What if the county says no? So Adeseli, on a good day, our office will have that conversation with you at Orange County or others at the county to say, hey, this charter school wants to be with you. Do you want to take them? And I believe we have had some scenarios where the county has expressed, we don't. We will not name any of them. And in that scenario, CDE works with the SBE to express that here's the deal. The district denied them and the county, you know, has expressed that they're not eager to be with the school. And so then the state board ultimately still has to make a designation, but our office does try to inform them of what the entities have expressed about it. So you could be agnostic and say neither here nor there, assign me if you assign me, don't. Or you can say, you know, for these various reasons, the county is not inclined to be their authorizer, with the understanding the State Board of Education ultimately makes a decision. So that's the process. Great question. All right, I think, okay.
There was a hand up. I don't see that hand anymore. But
Yeah, I saw like a Jody or somebody's hand up.
That was a mistake, sorry.
No problem. What does the renewal look like for them? So at the district level, it looks like a standard renewal. You take the performance category, or if they're DAS, use the DAS criteria. If you want to look up the Grossmont Union High School District's renewal of Altus schools, plural, East County, that happened in October. So if you want to look up the action item and the write-up, that would be one to look at. If you want to look up a denial, the sister school would have happened at Sweetwater Union High School District. This is Altus School South Bay, and that happened in November. I think right around Veterans Day, like maybe the 12th. So if you want to look up how local districts have written up the renewal, it looks like you're renewing them, like it's your school, even though on paper it's the State Board of Education school, but it reads like a renewal item. And then in the case of Grossmont, they granted it. In the case of Sweetwater, they denied it. And so for the denial, you'd have to have written findings specific to that petition. It can't just be a global, you know, we denied them before and we don't, it has to be specific to the petition. Rick said, for designating a charter authority, statute only requires, oh yes. So the consultation, Rick Reyes from the State Board of Education office, who was previously in the Charter Schools Division, so he can absolutely be familiar with a practical on the boots conversations, but there is that consultation. And to Adeseli's point, if it's not a we want them, it can be expressed in that consultation. It doesn't have to be, there's not a form. It's usually just kind of a meeting, and then CDE will share that with SBE. But ultimately, it will go to a district or county. It cannot remain with the state. That's not an option. The state board cannot say, well, the district doesn't want them, the county doesn't want them, let's just keep them. That's not allowed. The Ed Code does require the state board to designate either the district or the county. What is the expectation for a meet and greet? I like that, between all three stakeholders. This has been, I believe, our practice in the past, and this is certainly our practice or our offer to do this with regard to the future. So we just had high-tech high schools, not trying to get more confusing. That one's different because it was a statewide benefit charter, the last one. So it's not an appeal that went to the normal process. So meet and greet, certainly they can be suggested and offered. We're in the process of responding to San Diego County to facilitate a meet and greet between the state board office, my office at CDE, the San Diego County Office of Education, and likely, I would say, potentially a fourth entity would be High Tech High. So who is CDE reaching out to for the chartering authorizer conversation? Will charter departments within a COE be included or at least aware? Hey, Kristen. So we would, for the chartering authority with regard to the county, you would be our contact for the County Office of Education if there is a charter office. So San Diego County has a charter office. It has a director. So it'd be Kristen. At Laco, it would be Indra. At Santa Clara, it'd be Mifula. So we would take the director or the lead administrator of the county office charter department, if there is one. If there isn't one, then the default would be the superintendent of the county. And that's usually our way. And then sometimes it's dovetailed into something. So there might not be a charter office, but there might be a school of innovation. And we know that they do the charter work because they come to a CASI, or it's part of their bio. So if there's nothing explicit, because the county office does not have a large authorizing staff, then the default is the county superintendent. Thank you for that question. Will charter departments with it? Yes, we will ask the county office to send Kristen and whoever else from her office wants to be there for that conversation if there's a designation. What is the expectation for, oh, we just did that one. I'll pause. Any questions before we go to the last? What is the expectation for transferring files from the CDE to the local authorizer? This one depends on the relationship we've had up to the renewal. So for very large authorizers like LAUSD, we had a state board authorized charter school called New West Charter, and that was renewed and by LAUSD and looked at the performance category like a standard renewal. But in that scenario, LAUSD, as many of you know, have a very, very large charter office. And so in that scenario, we had already transferred some files through a Public Records Act request. So I think in most cases, it's more likely that following the renewal, we'll have the meet and greet and the offer to transfer. In that CDE does not hold CUME files or anything like that. We do have oversight files, and we would simply ask the authorizing county or the district what they want in the transfer. Because the new authorizer may want the annual site visit reports, or it may not be of relevance to them in their going forward oversight process because it's a new renewal. It's a clean slate, if you will, from July 1. But CDE is happy to and has historically provided files that we hold to the local authorizer. And they mostly include site visit reports, as you would anticipate. Sometimes there might be a notice of concern or something that has happened during the previous renewal term, and we're happy to provide those. You don't have to do a Public Records Act. You could just ask us for them, but either process has happened. So it's not a lot of you in this boat. I think there's maybe 7 counties, and within those, a couple of districts that this will happen. And if I didn't capture your scenario, you're welcome to email myself or Craig or charters at, and just say, I have a charter school, this is state board authorized. I don't think we have a published list of those schools. It is a list that's shrinking every year. We have 21 now. July 1st, we'll have 10. And then the following July 1st, I think we'll have 5. And then as of June 30, 2028, SBE will have none by law. We will no longer be an authorizer. We'll have to give trainings to authorizers without being an authorizer. So, Michelle, I think I covered all the ones that we got from the field, but I'll certainly stay on.
Nope, I think you got it.
Can I ask a favor and go to slide 13 and cover the executive actions while I'm here? And that way, I think it's slide 13. Okay, great. So I think most or many of you are part of our listserv with CDE. We have a couple of them, and this was sent, I think, through all of them, the CASI one, the grant one, and the general charter one. Many of you might be following all this exciting information from your own signing up for the governor's listserv. If you haven't done that, I encourage you to. Also, if you're part of one or both of the charter associations, they've had information about this. But basically, there's been some executive orders. Some of them are quite noteworthy in terms of they're pushing out deadlines for impacted schools in the Los Angeles areas due to the fires. And so you can click on them. We tried to give you the gov.ca link so that you can look at them proper, the signed ones. Mostly they extend some deadlines and give some reprieve for things like the SARC, the LCAP mid-year update, instructional minutes, and so on. I'm told that there may be other executive orders with educational timelines in the works. And so that's why it's great to be on the listserv itself so you can be notified right away and not wait for CDE to break the news. And then in the next slide, it has the general newsroom. So you can sign up for the listserv, or you can just check this newsroom website as often and it is relevant to you for your work for the impacted schools. The big question I'm getting on repeat is if and how it will impact the assessment window. That is not this month, but will come up sooner. And that is not yet addressed. And if there is information to share, CDE for charter schools will share it out through the listserv. So be sure to sign up for that. So those are the slides I'm covering. Thank you, Zoom, for updating me today.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next slide. Thank you. Nope, go back one. Thanks. All right, so we will be joining breakout rooms shortly, and I would like to just remind you all to please rename yourselves. All we need is your first and last name, and then followed by your organization, and that will help our host at CDE get you into the right breakout rooms, which will be random, except for their non-authorizers will have their own room. Okay, next slide, and I'm turning it over to Tom.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Well, the legislature is in session. It started on New Year's Day. It's an interesting time for some reasons that I'll talk about, but the stage that they're in right now is that they have until February 21st to introduce new bills. A bill has to be in print for at least 30 days before there can be a committee hearing about it. One of the noteworthy things about this session is there's around 1 in 3 members of the legislature, Assembly and Senate, that are new. And that's a pretty high proportion. And notably on this, that also has played out in the education committees, both Assembly and Senate Ed, especially on the Senate side. There's quite a proportion of, they're not very big committees, but that are new legislators, including the chair of the committee. So, Dave and I were in the building. They're in an office building while they build the new one next to the Capitol, and just kind of meeting people and familiarizing themselves with kind of the charter authorizing world to an extent. But there are a lot of people who they may have some background in education. They may have done things in their communities related to education, but a lot of the sort of the technical nuances of state and education may be new to them. Next slide. There are a couple of bills that are worth noting. I'm going to take them in reverse order. The first one, Senate Bill 48, I guess you'd summarize it as it's sort of an attempt to reiterate an approach that schools are kind of off limits to immigration enforcement, and a variety of things they're sort of putting into legislation or in this proposal to declare schools to be safe spaces for anxious families or kids as to immigration enforcement. So that's one to watch, as you've probably been following the headlines nationally on this. The one that really relates to our world, though, is Assembly Bill 84. That is, so we've talked in these forums before about the fact, in the aftermath of the A3 charter fraud case, there's a number of reports. There's the LAO FCMAT report that was on non-classroom-based funding that also looked at oversight of charter schools. There's the court-initiated state controllers task force report that zeroes in on auditing and the auditing process and qualifications and that sort of thing. And there's a CCAP report on fraud prevention recommendations. All those are on the desks of people in the legislature now. And the Senate, the Assembly Ed Committee has a spot bill that's sort of a placeholder bill that will be the vehicle for the committee's work on this. And they're digesting all these myriad of recommendations. And the spot bill basically says our intent is to put a lot of those things into this bill. There's some instances in which the reports sort of state things in the alternative, so not every single recommendation can make it. It's sort of either this one or this one. But there's a lot of very technical stuff that they're working on as a result of these committees. And right now, the only item that's in the bill itself just addresses the question about how the state data systems, as to enrollment and payments speak to each other, and that right now the language says could FCMAT study that issue, but the rest is just sort of declaring their intent for this to be the vehicle. So that will be one that we'll want to watch very closely. There are some things in the LAO FCMAT report, for example, about calling into question the scenario in which a very small authorizer has responsibility for oversight of a very large school, and whether that just inherently leads to some vulnerabilities. So stay tuned on that one. Dave, was there anything you wanted to add?
Just two quick thoughts. One is I just wanted to remind everybody that all three reports recommended a number of changes, but they also were very clear that they're recommending these changes as an effort to improve the integrity of the system to apply to all LEAs. So the conversation will become more nuanced because it isn't just about somebody else, it's about everybody. And so I think that's important. And the second one that is this bill also, well, we expect it to be the vehicle for whatever conversations there are about non-classroom and the moratorium and all that. And that's a whole different subject. So I just wanted to put that on the table as part of the complication for what could be a pretty complex year.
All right, thanks. Just another side note, we didn't get it into the slide, but the budget bill numbers, it's Assembly Bill 227, Senate Bill 65. So a lot of time, so we'll be kind of watching that too, but stay tuned. I think that's all we have on this front. Susan already covered this. A lot of things in there. There are some charter specific things in there about, alternative sites, and if you're in an affected county, if you're a site-based school, being able to go to other places temporarily and facilities, a lot of things. And as Susan mentioned, there's more, sounds like, in the works. So getting onto that listserv is a good idea.
So,
Oh, and then we have the state board. Susan mentioned the High Tech High, so that was on the agenda for January 15th, that very scenario that Susan just walked us through. And the next ACCS meeting is coming up on February 4th.
So now we're going to turn to hot topics, which is news you can use right now related to program and fiscal. Next slide, please. Matt, take it away.
So I'm gonna do the first and third bullet first, and then I'll do the middle, because that's the longer one. The SARC, the School Accountability Report Card, is due to the CDE's SARC website by February 1st, and the comprehensive site safety plan must be completed by each of your charters by March 1st. You should check your MOUs to see if those documents need to be submitted to you as their authorizer on those particular timelines. Different authorizers collect and look at different types of things. So if the SARC and CSSP are on your docket, just be aware that those timelines are coming up. The Local Control Accountability Plan mid-year update. The following guidance has been added to the LCAP or to the LCFF FAQs as of October 2023. What are the requirements for the mid-year update to the LCAP? All charter schools, districts, and COEs are required to present a report on the annual update to the LCAP and the LCFF budget overview for parents on or before February 28th of each year at a regularly scheduled meeting of the governing board or body of the LEA. The mid-year report must include the following: all available mid-year outcome data related to the metrics identified in the current year's LCAP, and all available mid-year expenditure and implementation data on all actions identified in the current year's LCAP. Is there a required template for the mid-year update? No, there is no requirement for LEAs to use any particular template. It is up to the LEA to determine how to present and report the required information to their local governing board or body. And will the mid-year update report be included in the next LCAP or in the LCAP? No, the mid-year update will not be included in the LCAP. However, the information presented may inform the development of the following year's LCAP. So, however, it's in law that they have to present this update. Just keep in mind as an authorizer that you may want to collect or somehow monitor that your charters are upholding that part of the law as well. Next slide.
Back to you, Michelle.
Actually, this goes to Shalou and Cynthia.
Thank you, Michelle. So welcome, everyone. So before we dive into the budget update, I just want to remind everyone, we did talk about the audit in December charter chat, but just want to remind everyone by now, you should have received your 23-24 audit reports for all the schools that you authorized, which were due by December 15. But just in case, they have requested for an extension and which was granted for 30 days, should have also been received by now, with few exceptions of the schools that's impacted by the LA fire. Please follow up accordingly. So because if there is further delay with no reasonable reason, it's kind of a red flag to keep those schools in cautions and see what's going on with that, just to follow up accordingly. Next slide, please. So starting with the 25-26 governor proposed budget, starting with the big picture, we just wanted to point out that Governor 25-26 proposal emphasized stability in education program funding. Overall, the governor's budget projections closely aligns with the LAO estimates, and there's that, which means that there is no significant difference. The budget projects about 17 billion surplus across the budget period, which means the prior year, which is 23-24, the current year 24-25, and the budget year, which is 25-26, and also maintaining a healthy reserves, that means contributing to the rainy day account. However, there are several risks that's in, living in California economy. First goes by the delay in the tax filing for the Los Angeles County residents and corporations, which is mainly about 25% of the state population. Second, by potential change in the federal policies under the new administration. And third, as always, the volatility in the stock market, which always there's a risk to the California revenue projections. With that, as you know, this is just an initial proposal, which will go in extensive deliberations and refinements. We'll have some more updates by May revise before the budget is finalized in June. So here are a few key highlights that we want to point out, starting with the COLA. The COLA for fiscal year 25-26 is proposed at 2.43, which is about 0.5% lower than what was anticipated at the 24-25 enacted budget. The governor plans to fully fund 2.43 COLA for LCFF and other state categorical programs, including Equity Multiplier, Child Nutrition, Mandated Block Grant, Special Education, and Charter School Facility Grant Program. Universal Kindergarten. 25-26 marks the full implementation of the transitional kindergarten, meaning all students who turn 4 by September 1st are now eligible to enroll for TK. The governor has proposed an additional $875 million ongoing to implement 10-to-1 adult to pupil ratio, which is lowering from 12 to 1, with the average class size per school site capped at 24 students. This additional funding is proposed via TK add-on to LCFF. And as a reminder, the certification requirements for credentialing TK teacher must be in place by August 1st, 2025. And failure to comply with these requirements could result in fiscal penalties. Universal meals. Governor proposal includes an augmentation of $106 million to fully fund universal meal program and corresponding reimbursement for schools. Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. The governor is proposing an expansion to Tier 1 funding eligibility in ELOP program by lowering the threshold from 75% unduplicated percent to 55%. Another point to note, beginning with 25-26, LEA will have to opt in to ELOP program. Also, starting with 23-24 ELOP funds, they will need to be spent within 2 years, meaning the 23-24 funds need to be expended by June 30th, 2025. And ELOP funds can also be used to support attendance recovery. Next slide, please. And I'll pass this to Cynthia.
Thank you, Shalyn. And to quickly round off the governor's proposal with some additional highlights, beginning with a flexible $1.8 billion of the Magical Word one-time funds for student support and professional development discretionary block grant. Mouthful. With this grant, LEAs may use this to address the rising costs with an emphasis on teacher professional development, ELA, ELD, and math framework, literacy roadmap, teacher recruitment and retention efforts, and career pathways and dual enrollment. At this time, we don't know yet the methodology of how these funds will be allocated. The next highlight is the educator investments. The governor proposes $150 million of one-time teacher recruitment incentive grant program and an additional $100 million for the National Board Certification Incentive Program. In literacy investments, the governor proposes $40 million in one-time funds for literacy screening and $500 million for one-time funds for TK through 12 for the expansion of literacy and math coaches programs. And one last item to highlight is the school facilities fund, with the California Proposition 2 approved by the voters in November 2024, authorized the state to issue $100 billion in bonds for K through 14 facilities construction and renovation. For 25-26, the governor proposes to sell $1.5 billion of the approved bonds, of which $600 million is proposed to be allocated for charter school facilities. And just to reiterate, this is the beginning of a very lengthy process, so stay tuned for the trailer bill language, May revision, and finally the June enacted budget. So back to me, Phila.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to prepare to go into breakout rooms. Please make sure that you have renamed yourself with your name and your organization. That will help us get you to the right breakout room. Please start your breakout rooms if you're a facilitator by having new folks introduce themselves. I think that will go a long way in making sure that our non-authorizing partners are directed to the correct non-authorizing room. And we need the link for the note taker. And while we're doing that, I want to just mention that the facilitators for room 1 will be Michelle and Shalou. Room 2, Mifala, Cynthia, Danielle, and Megan. Room 3, Dave and Sandy or Tierney. Room 4, Tom and Craig or Soledad. And room 5, Matt and Allison. Did I get that right? Okay. So you're going to use this time as an opportunity to follow up on anything that you had questions about that you heard earlier, or ask any questions you have, or share information with your colleagues. So if you are a facilitator, please make sure you grab the link for the note taker. And Amy, I think we're ready to go
Okay.
into break rooms.
Opening now.
We will give folks a few minutes. Looks like maybe everyone is back from breakout rooms. So let's get a quick debrief from each room. And start with actually room 4, which was the non-authorizer room. Tom?
Yeah, we had a variety of things we talked about. Just some highlights, and then if somebody else from the room wants to expand on it or address something that I may have missed. One scenario was, people really appreciated Susan's overview of how it works with the SB authorized schools, but. A scenario was brought out, what if an existing county authorized school kind of is interested in being authorized by a district now, and how that works out in scenarios. Craig shared a scenario, and it was a little different because it was started out as a department authorized school, but where a county and a district kind of got together and figured that out. Another issue that came up was just picking up on the conversations in Sacramento about authorizer capacity, especially for very small authorizers, and the attempts to make sure that, the irony is right now where these issues are really getting a lot of scrutiny for understandable reasons is also a time when we have more supports for authorizers than we've ever had before between Cassie and the department and CCAP and everybody. So stay tuned on that one. But, it's sort of the leading the horse to water thing. There's some people who are just super, super busy, and whether they're able to engage in Cassie and come to the CCAP conference, all this thing was brought up. So stay tuned on that. Legislature is looking at that issue. Zach had a question about equity, the LCF equity multiplier. I think, Zach, you got your question answered by Jason, but if I missed something or if that's still a live question, maybe want to chime in and just say, did that take care of it, or should we note that down for a future charter chat?
It wouldn't be a bad idea just to note it down, just so I can report back to some of our schools on what they may need to add to their LCAP.
Okay, we'll follow up with you, Zach, on that one.
Perfect. Thank you.
Did I miss anything? Anybody from Group 4? Okay.
And we'll go on to group 5, Matt.
So we had some folks who are newer to the authorizing role in our room. So we had some questions around, how to figure out what to collect from schools and when, what documents are important to look at. And so we had some shared resources both to our calendar and to Riverside County's calendar, compliance calendar of documents. Put those links on the note taker if people want to grab them. Similarly, questions about, what do I need to have? Is there like an application for renewal? What do schools need to prepare prior to renewal above and beyond, their updated petition? So again, shared some resources on that. And then had a question about what's the ETA on the new performance tiers list. When's that going to come out? I think we all sort of shruggingly guessed March-ish, because that's when it came out last year. And then whether or not we should estimate a school's tier or allow schools to estimate their tiers if they're coming up for renewal before the tier list has been put out by CDE.
Michelle and Shalou, room 1.
So we talked about MOUs, appeals of a denied petition, distinction of a fund balance versus accrual method, and that was a very specific question about ending fund balances. And then the last one that we talked about was closure procedure documents. And if anyone has some types of or documents that they can share with us, please send it to Cassie so that or if you're willing, send it to Cassie so that we can make it available to so everyone can have access to see what your closure procedure documents or closure procedure checklist might be. And thanks to Scott for putting it in the chat already.
Great. Room 2, Cynthia and Mifla, Danielle and Megan. I don't think Danielle and Megan were there. Cynthia, I'll start, and if you have anything to add, or anyone from room 2 has anything to add or build upon, feel free to jump in. So there were kind of really 2 main topics that we talked about. One was staff reports for renewal, talking about kind of striking the balance between providing enough information and making it very clear, and not having it too long and wieldy. Shout outs from several folks to Kelly on her streamlined, clear staff report, and she shared a link. I don't know, Kelly, if you want to drop it in the chat for the main room. And then the other thing we talked about was providing a staff recommendation to the board versus not providing a staff recommendation. And yeah, I would say those are 2 main things. Anything from the rest of the group? Okay. Who was going to say something? No one? Okay. All right, room 3, Dave.
Okay. We had a very detailed discussion about, it started with the issue of audit findings for a charter school, but it was related to the charter shift calculation, Ed Code 42238.051. But it's the issue where the district is responsible for making sure they provide certain information that could affect their unduplicated account funding. And so we had a bit of conversation about that. There's in our notes, there's stuff relating to the a calculator that the department has on their website. So the link is there. So that was, I think, a major piece there. And if anyone at the end want to add on that one, I appreciated the expert discussion coming out of San Diego. We also had a conversation about post-secondary outcomes using verified data, and Alameda has done some work in that area and was sharing. And then the third piece is, like I think we've heard for others, new board members are looking for guidance and this is trying to support them about how to actually run the hearing, how to run the meeting itself. And others offered some of the guidance they've already provided. Sac City and Alameda County Office of Ed, for example, were 2 of them. Anything else or any additional things from our room 3 participants, please?
Next slide. So we're running over just a little bit, almost at the end though. Want to make sure that you take a moment to fill out our survey. The link is in the chat already. So as you hear Tom wrap this up, go ahead and start filling out your survey. Next slide.
Yeah, can we go to the next slide? And then I'll talk fast, put on my auctioneer voice here. Here's what's coming up with Cassie. We'll be back here for Charter Chat on the 26th. Our next quarterly training will be, again, we come back to this every year because everybody's dealing with it, but our latest and greatest version of Road to Renewal will be on April 11th. You'll see the registration put out by Cassie soon. Next. Again, if you would like a training for your folks or folks in your area, I think, including on-site, if you think that might draw some people who aren't plugging in otherwise, but maybe if, like, say your district people are used to coming to your county once a month and you'd like to have some discussion of oversight, let us know. We have some funding to do that, and we're happy to bring the show on the road. If you would like some one-on-one support, reach out to Michelle and we can get you help. Next. Was Susan, did you want to speak this, or Allison, or somebody from the department? You can take this one if you'd like, or I can do it if nobody wants to jump on.
they're not going to be here. So it was just, if you're interested in going to the CCSA conference, CDE is putting on a presentation there about the PCSGP grant. So
Yeah, so
put
the
the
same,
link to the conference there.
yeah, the same grant that funds Cassie, the larger part of the grant is actually for new replicating and expanding charter schools, and they'll walk schools or prospective petitioners through that. Next. But near and dear to our heart, of course, is the Authorizers Conference. Again, it's June 16th to 18th in Palm Springs, technically Rancho Mirage, but we say Palm Springs for shorthand. We will have the pre-conference, which is Charter 101. It'll be an all-day one. We had split it into 2 days, but we're going back to an all-day model, and it'll be more sort of hands-on and kind of participatory. We will have deeper dives on the afternoon Wednesday. So we end with a plenary at lunchtime, and then those who want to stay on for Wednesday, we'll have a deeper dive where people can really roll their sleeves up and have longer time to do some things collaboratively. We're looking for your thoughts on that as well. Just a reminder for those of you, many people on this call have been our presenters in years past, and we always welcome your ideas and expertise. Our call for proposals is up on the website, and the due date is coming up on Monday, February 17th. And I'll just add this thing. If you have an idea for a presentation, but you would like to partner with somebody and you're not sure who that person would be, just fill out the form and we can help maybe make some marriages for people. We've done that in the past. So just share your ideas and we can take it from there. Thanks very much. I think.
Next slide. If you want to contact us, you may do so at cassie@cde.ca.gov. Thank you so much for joining us. And fill out your survey.
Thanks all.
We have 12.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day, everyone.